Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O.
Pat. Oh, how was your weekend?
I was unfortunately locked in dad mode again. So that was it was good, I guess, for my kids, but kind of sucked for me. It was a weekend full of basketball games and fundraisers. Attempted to dye my daughter's hair on Saturday.
Oh, how'd that go?
Well, my wife got involved and it turned out terrible. Now I can't tell if it's because I didn't handle it on my own or if it's because it just was not meant to be. My daughter has kind of like darkish blonde hair or light brown hair, I guess you'd say. And we did not bleach it. We simply got like that kind of like cool it was called splat, I think. Pink dye that we put in over it, right? And then we like wrapped it up in tinfoil and did that whole thing. And I don't know. I used to bleach my hair when I was younger, like actually like physically strip the color from it. And I have darker hair, so when I would bleach it, it would be blonde. I used to have bleached blonde hair in the '90s, as many of us did. And then if I ever dyed my hair blue or anything, it just went right over it. Right, your hair's you strip the color out, and then you put new color. Why am I explaining this to you? You know how the fuck it works. So this was kind of like a half-ass version of that, and it just turned out so. But it reminded me of being in high school and like I used to dye girls' hair with like Kool-Aid and stuff. And they'd be like, "Oh, can you see it? Can you see the purple tint? Like there's purple tint to it." And it's like, I don't see shit. Your hair still looks the same to me. But she seemed to think that there was a pinkish hue to it. So go ahead, whatever you want to do, baby. And then
Okay.
we saw because her and I have been going to the movies a lot lately together. And we saw Missing, which was the it's one of those movies that they had made another one back in the day too. But this one was about like a girl's parents go missing, and the whole movie takes place on like the desktop of her computer. You know what I mean? It's like it's found footage, but obviously they show like technology and they show her like googling things, and it was all right. I think it was interesting to see a story told like that for somebody that's got a little bit of a filmmaking background. Um, it's a little gimmicky. I don't think I need to see every movie shot like that, but one movie every 5 years uh, is okay. And I think it's also interesting that we're at a very specific place in time culturally where you can tell a story like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
10 years from now or 10 years ago, you wouldn't be able to do that. And 10 years from now, you might not be able to do that again either. This movie kind of really exists in a moment. And I think that's a little fascinating. So, not to be a total movie nerd, but from an anthropological point of view, and please make a meme about how I mispronounced that word, Red. You fucking jagoff. Uh, from an anthropological point of view, it was interesting. It was an interesting piece of media. So yeah, that was the majority of my weekend. Also, recorded some new content for Y2K movies. Um, we did an episode for Kids versus Aliens, which has just dropped this week, and the movie was excellent. So, much like South Park, we were able to rush the episode into production to comment on something that's happening in the immediate immediately time. So that movie came out on Friday, and we recorded an episode for it yesterday, and it's dropping today. And then also this week we're doing another episode on actually our most requested movie, if you can believe that, 2008's Speed Racer. Ever since we started that podcast, people have been asking that we cover that movie. So we finally got around to it with one of my D&D buddies who's got a podcast and Twitch stream of his own.
What is it? Was it a good movie? I didn't watch it.
Speed Racer?
Yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, well, it's by the Wachowskis. It's very visually it's very interesting because it's like, the Wachowskis like shtick is kind of that they bring anime to life. That they do live action anime, right? And They certainly did that to a certain extent with the Matrix, with the fighting styles and all that stuff, and bullet time and all that shit. But they do it in a completely different sense with Speed Racer. And I don't know. Did you ever watch the cartoon at all as a kid? Yeah, it's pretty faithful in tone, and then but it's also got the Wachowskis, like, anti-establishment vibe. It was very reminiscent of, this is another movie that everybody loves nowadays, Josie and the Pussycats. I don't know if you have you seen that.
Not the movie, no, but
Yeah,
I've
so
seen the show.
the Josie and the Pussycats movie, it's all about them being like they're like this, I don't know, little punk band, I guess you'd say, and they are hired by this record label. They're signed by a record label to use subliminal messaging in their music. And it's all about how MTV and top 40 music and boy bands and all this manufactured pop bullshit is just a way to sell other products through subliminal messaging. And it's really clever, and they handle that concept, and they do a little bit, they do more than you think that you would have to with the Josie and the Pussycats movie. And in the same way, they do the same thing with Speed Racer, where Speed Racer is really about, and it's got a very big Gnostic ending where Speed reached this moment of pure transcendence. It's, I won't get into it. Watch it; it's pretty good, but it's worth checking
Yeah.
out. It's very, they'll be good episodes. What else do I want to talk about? Starting this week, something else that not necessarily happened just this weekend, but weekends moving forward. I got us ad time on Q101. So if you're a fan of the show, you're already listening, so it was probably wasted on you. But
Well,
you know,
no, people listening might be here for the first time.
oh, there you go. Well, this is why
Welcome
you
to our
came to hear.
show.
Welcome to our show. This is why I came to buy ad time on Q101. So there's a Sunday morning history of alternative show on Q101 that I have listened to religiously since it came on. It's 4 hours Sunday morning. Actually, I think it's a little bit more than 4 hours now, but it's basically, they'll play anything from The Cure to Real Big Fish to Fall Out Boy to Rancid to Depeche Mode to Ministry, both types of Ministry, anything, right? History of alternative, and it's really great. It's awesome Sunday morning. I'm getting ready to go to church to do my AV job, and I love it. And it's very reminiscent of when I was in college radio at WXAV. We had our radio show was Sunday morning too. So absolutely love this program. Listen to it every Sunday. And for a while, they were running ads from this other paranormal podcast, who I can't even remember the name of them, but they the show sounded terrible. Like it was like us, but like they weren't funny, and like the sound clips they would pull were like, I'm supposed to want to watch it because of that. Like that's you got 30 seconds to sell me on something, and that is the sound clip that you used.
Yeah.
Like if this is your heavy hitter best of the best moment, like Jesus, I am not tuning into this. But it put the idea in my head, like, oh, let's see how much ad time is, and it's like super fucking cheap. It's like $30 a spot. So I got us a spot for the month of February. We'll be running an ad on the history of alternative on Q101. So look it up. You should listen to the radio show anyway, because it's really good. And I'm sure, radio stations nowadays, it doesn't matter if you live in Chicago, you can go on the internet, or if you have a Alexa device, you can just say, hey, put on Q101,
I
and
like that. That was,
she'll start playing. I know, because I got one in the room with me now.
yeah.
But it'll start playing it, and that, so you don't have to like be able to tune in FM Q101. You can just do it
So
via.
hold on. Are they paying us $30 to show their shit right now?
No, no, no,
Or
no, 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 no. I like bought
well,
advertisement time,
well,
like you would for like Johnny's Discount Auto Parts, or you know Asher's Falafels. It's just, we did it for on Wednesdays. We talk weird, so. And we'll see how it goes. If we see, the ads start running next Sunday, and then if we see any kind of uptick, maybe we'll supplement them with doing a weeknight 2 a.m. Ad spot, because that's kind of the coast to coast
yeah,
hours,
that'd be
right?
cool.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just something to try. That's always been my thing with this show is that I like having different spaces to play in and different stuff just to kind of like screw around with. And we'll see. We'll see if advertising works and if we get any kind of uptick or any kind of feedback, then we'll keep it going. So that's that. What else do I want to talk about? So this has arguably little to do with me, depending on who you ask. But Thursday, February 2nd at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Clubhouse app. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Remember your Clubhouse app. Hopefully you've
Dust off
kept it.
your old Clubhouse app.
Hopefully you have not deleted it. People are going to try to tell you this was my idea or all my fault. It isn't. I'm simply a conduit to the universe. CryptoCasters is coming back 9 p.m. Thursday, February 2nd, 9 p.m. Eastern on Clubhouse. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Greg Morrill, he dusted off the fez, and he'll be getting back out there.
I'm
And
excited. I miss Greg.
I don't know if I talked about it on the air, but there is probably, I mean, no bullshit. At least a week, once a week or once every couple days, where I thought, man, how great was that? How great was that for the community, and how great was that for just everything to get people together and talking in that app. I was always go back to those old episodes. Like I was always a big fan of the Clubhouse app and the technology and the way that it worked getting people together. I thought it was brilliant. I loved it. And it was kind of a shame that I always felt like we were kind of underutilizing it. And not that I'm taking anyone to task for that, but it's just like I wish I had seen us do more of it. And I mean, hey, we never hosted a single. You might have, I don't know, but I mean, like I know I didn't. We never. I feel like we never hosted a single Clubhouse room. We
Yeah,
were
I was
in a
on there a
bunch of
lot.
them. Yeah, I was on there a lot too, but like it only seemed like it was maybe Greg and Jeremiah Byron that were kind of like doing stuff. And hopefully this creates a renaissance where more people get involved with it and do it more, because I think it's a great way to connect with people. And I'm glad that it's coming back. So that's February 2nd. So depending on when you're listening to this, maybe potentially 2 weeks from tomorrow. But
I miss it because it's just, I mean, honestly, was it a big place to network? No. Was there always a lot of people in the room? No. There wasn't. Sometimes, every once in a great while, you would meet someone new, and maybe that connection went somewhere and maybe it didn't. But like I met Jeremiah and Greg both because of Clubhouse. So I mean,
right,
that once that was established, yeah. Aaron D's got into this because of Clubhouse. Like that's where he started. And so it's helped a lot of people. I don't think it's gonna matter much now. I mean, I miss hanging out with my friends and talking about, weird stuff. But it's not like, I mean, it's like getting back on MySpace and having a group chat on there. Like it's a dinosaur at this point. Nobody's on it, but we will be Thursday. So
wow,
that'll be
a little
fun.
passive aggressive shit talking there, but all right, I'll
It's
allow it.
true.
Factually
Clubhouse
sound. Well,
has tanked.
but you know what? You're right. Well, first of all, it may have tanked for this crowd, but go on there. There's still, when I went on it the other day just to see if I needed to update it or anything. And there's still activity on it. Remember, the world exists beyond our bubble. But yeah, I think when you bring up the MySpace comparison, that's something I almost did earlier as well. Uh, you're right. MySpace had its moment, and it was very important for a moment in time, and then it kind of fell by the wayside. And then what happened? Then Facebook came along. You know what I mean? And we're arguably in the twilight of the Facebook years, or not, depending on who you ask. But Facebook begat Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. So whether or not Clubhouse will be the end all be all of audio social networking, or hosting these kind of live chat rooms or anything like that, probably not. But it can be. To compare it to MySpace, I think is pretty accurate. It might have been the opening shot, and MySpace wasn't even the opening shot. There used to be Friendster, you know what I mean, or Friendster. There used to be
Dang it.
live. Live journal. Yeah, I mean there was always something that came before. Before that, there was bulletin boards. If you really want to fucking go back, there was CompuServe Usernet groups. So like, yeah, everything occupies a specific space in the chain, and you're never the first and you're never the last. You're always usually just somewhere in the middle. So yeah, I think Clubhouse probably will not be the end all be all of this type of technology and communication, but uh, it definitely will definitely be on it February 2nd at 9 p.m. Eastern. So check that shit out.
It's fun
Asher's,
for me.
Asher's, how was your weekend?
It was okay. I mean, my plans kind of had a wrench thrown in them, but whatever. Like, I mean, I don't know.
Damn family.
It was a family weekend, which was okay, I guess. But I mean, I don't mind my family so much. But I just always feel like it's my own fault. But I feel like I can't like be in the moment and just like enjoy it because I feel like I'm wasting my time because I'm not doing anything that's particularly productive. And so I'm trying to get over that socially. I need to I need to stop feeling like everything has to be a job or everything has to have a goal, or I need to stop working so damn much. So it was all right. Friday night we recorded for Monster Radio, which is out now for we talked about the Mothman. So that's a fan favorite. If you feel like you've not heard me talk about the Mothman enough, go over there and listen to me talk about the Mothman some more. But maybe I'll learn you something. I don't know. Um, and that was really it. Sunday I binge watched that '90s show.
What did you think? We talked about that on our Kids versus Aliens movie towards the end.
It was okay. I didn't
Yeah.
hate it. I wasn't hooked on it. I could live without it. But I didn't. Like I said, I didn't hate it. It was all right. It was all right.
My two I guess sound bites, takeaways from it, which you could also hear on Y2K Movies, Kids vs. Aliens, is number one. Actually, I got a couple. Number one, Eric Foreman's daughter is incredibly adorable, and I mean that in the least creepy pederast way. I understand she's supposed to be a teenager, but she's cute, right? Like I think she's cute. Like she's a cute
She's a
kid on
cute
that
kid.
show.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I would like to see her in more stuff. I thought she was charismatic.
I liked
Um,
all of the cast.
well, there was a few note for note translations that I wasn't thrilled about. The football player kid they got playing the new Kelso is a little too Kelso. Now, mind you, I'm only halfway through, so maybe there's some great character development that I'm missing or something. Um, the gay Asian kid's kind of a stand-in for Fez. I thought that was what it was. Um, we were talking about the Kids versus Aliens movie and how there's a tendency to when you write dialogue for preteens and teenagers, either they have a tendency to make them seem too smart or too vulgar. And luckily in Kids versus Aliens, they go the vulgar route where the kids just drop a lot of F bombs and motherfuck each other. And I think that's more authentic than kids trying to sound more intelligent. But one of the things that I saw on Twitter that I have to agree with is that for a bunch of Midwestern kids in 1995 sitting around drinking beer and smoking weed, no one calls anyone a homo, right? Like they don't like
Yeah.
they
Well,
don't like
right.
really talk to each other the way kids in the
No.
90s would talk to each other. It's very the
Well,
90s whitewashed via fucking Netflix and everything.
right. I
Um,
feel like these are like Gen Z kids, definitely. Like they're not '90s kids. Like
right.
they are 100% Gen Z kids, and that's
Nobody's
very
smoking cigarettes. They should all be smoking cigarettes.
none of them are smoking cigarettes. And I
Right.
feel like physically they all look too young. Like I feel like the kids in that '70s show were definitely like teenagers, right? These are not. I mean, I think they're supposed to be because one drives, but like they don't look like it. They look like they're like 12 to 14.
Yeah, Eric Foreman's daughter, her Leia, they dress her. I noticed this about her costuming, and I know this because I don't. Well, never mind. She looks out of the like she's right out of the Delia's catalog. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that they put her in, like I
Yeah.
guess that's what what girls were wearing. Like they do seem to kind of get that right. Um and I did honestly, there was a joke in the second episode where they go to rent Clerks. She's never seen Clerks before. And she talks about how hot she thinks Kevin Smith is.
Yeah.
And I love that joke just because no one ever calls her out on it, but they always kind of just look at each other like, really? Like, not saying he isn't hot. They're not making fun of Kevin Smith or calling him ugly. But when she says a couple times, "Oh my God, Kevin Smith, he's so hot," because she's never seen it before and she's trying to act cool in front of her friends.
Yeah.
And they're just like, hmm.
It was good. It definitely had a couple of it had a couple of laps, you know. Um, like I
Yeah,
said, I didn't hate it, but I didn't need it. It's not the content that I needed, and it didn't feel um that 70s show feels like it takes place in the 70s. This does not feel like it takes place in the 90s.
right. And I
Missing
think
that.
the most authentic part of that show was the next door neighbor, was the kid's mom. Um, because that is a trashy chick from Kenosha, and I've known plenty of them in my day, but they're timeless. That's not necessarily a trashy 90s chick from Kenosha. You could go to Kenosha right now and find women that are exactly like that. You know,
She's just yeah. I mean,
nothing against our Kenosha listeners if we have any. You know, got nothing but love for you girls, but I'm just saying, like that's the waitress at the
especially
Broad
women.
Stop still. Like they're still like that.
Yeah,
You
well, I
know,
agree. I know people like that now. Right. I mean,
that Midwestern hussy.
that
You
grew up
know.
to be like that. And then I just feel like, look, I get it. I understand that, it's a new group of kids and they're trying to make it as close as, as possible to the old group of kids. But like, is that the point of like a reboot, is to like spend time with the characters that you loved in the previous show? Which I mean, it's hard to do, right? Because like that one guy ended up being like a rapist or whatever. So like he's in prison and
Yeah.
like I but I'm sure they could be like, oh, he died, that would be within that character, right, for him to be dead. You don't really see the kids a lot, and when you do see them, like really, like you maybe like you see Eric and Donna more so than anybody else. They're just somebody's parents. They're not Eric and Donna.
Well, he had a sister, right?
He did, yeah.
Was I imagining that? Okay, because my wife, we watched it with my wife and my son obviously had no idea what any of it was, and she wasn't really a fan. But I was like, I could have swore he had like this hot blonde sister.
He did, and I kind of feel like maybe like they recast her at like the end of the show, which I never watched. Like after a certain point, I stopped watching that 70 show. I didn't watch the whole thing through.
No, I watched until I probably was out of high school, and I went about my life and I was partying and stuff. It's like X Files. Like people talk to me about like the Patrick. Try to talk to me about Dogbert and like Doggert or like the Robert Patrick X Files era. I'm like, I'm fucking dude. I grew out of it at that point. I don't know what was going
Right, I
on.
haven't watched all of it. That's right, and I feel like that 70 show is like that. Now, again, it has some nostalgia factor, because when I was watching it, I was like preteen. I mean, that's when it came
Hmm.
out. Was like in my preteen years. And I kind of grew up with it a little bit. But then like South Park, you stop watching it.
Well, unfortunately, I
Two
still
South
watch
Park
it.
references this episode. I'm proud of us.
But yeah, and I think it was that first one, that 70s show was a little bit more groundbreaking because first of all it was on Fox, so they definitely were on a shorter leash than Netflix probably has them on, number one. And number two, like them smoking weed was like I mean the weed was still illegal in the country at that point.
Yeah.
To have a show where high school kids are smoking pot was like, I'm not saying it was like groundbreaking boundary. It wasn't fucking Oz, but like
Oh yeah.
there was a little bit of edge to it, and it was kind of funny, and it was kind of cool. And now I just found it annoying when they were smoking weed because I'm like, nobody gets that high. Shut the fuck up.
I
Like,
agree. Yeah.
it just seemed cheese dick where you're just, and you're at the point where, like I said,
Real
now with the exception of you, backwards ass people in Ohio, like most of the country can smoke dope now. You go buy it at the gas station. Like the idea that it was like this taboo, like rebellious thing, like that's got to be completely lost on kids, you know?
We have legal pot in Ohio. It's not recreationally legal. It's only medically legal.
Yeah, whatever. Doesn't count.
Yes, it
Whatever.
does.
Whatever.
Anyway, we have dispensaries. You can go there, buy it. It's just cheaper to fucking buy it off your drug dealer than it is to go and fucking
Right.
deal with your
Pay
medical
cocaine
card.
prices
And,
for weed at a dispensary,
all right, fuck that. I just get some
which
shake from my dealer and I'll be just fine.
ties into my news this week when we get
Oh
there.
gosh. Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, do you want me to go or do you want to go or?
You can go first.
Okay, I have one news. I have
Okay.
exactly one news. So a couple in Boston, Massachusetts allegedly had an encounter with the Men in Black. So one night they were watching a bunch of like UFO shit on like YouTube and whatever, a couple, and they go out at like 2:30 in the morning to go smoke a cigarette and they're kind of talking about aliens a little bit, and allegedly while they're discussing aliens, they see a UFO and freaks them out. So they go inside. About an hour later, they go back outside again. So I guess this would be about around 3:30 in the morning, and they saw a guy in a black car was sitting right across from them, and he got out of the car and just stood there. But like down the street, they saw two other men just kind of standing around watching them. Then eventually they went in. Now the lady of the couple said that their faces were like blurry looking, which I'm not sure entirely what that means. Maybe she needs glasses. I don't know. Maybe that's what she means. Well, maybe that's what she means by that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that this was reported to a UFO group, and the UFO group, it wasn't reported by the couple. It was reported by the girl's brother. He reported it. The couple had actually called the police about the man standing around outside their house, and the police said, "Sorry, we take crimes, not UFO calls," and hung up on them. So, I don't know. Was it the Men in Black? I don't know. Well, why would they come for them? I just the Men in Black stuff is always so strange to me.
Right. Yeah, because it kind of what they did. They see anything that because the Men in Black don't come for everybody,
Right.
right? So why did they come for these people? Because they had a pretty
Within an hour
milquetoast
of their
encounter.
sighting.
Yeah.
They didn't even have the chance to tell anybody. They didn't post pictures or videos or anything online. It wasn't like they got on Twitter at 2:30 in the morning and reported it to all of Twitter and it went viral instantly. And anything like that. So, why these people? Why would they show up then and there? I don't know. I kind of have a theory about the Men in Black, and maybe that they're not like alien entities, but maybe they are government officials. And the only time that they show up in an incident is when it's something that we know or they know is directly tied to the U.S. military. That's why they don't want people talking about it. So if the military, let's just pretend it's real, okay? Maybe the military was out there testing some type of secret craft and they happen to see it, right? So they already had boots on the ground trying to track people that may have been out and about. Maybe they saw them from afar and was like, "Oh my God, there's people outside. Let's go intimidate them." I don't know. They didn't say anything to them.
Mm-hmm.
They could have just been people. People are allowed to also hang outside at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. Like, that's fine. There's no law against
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But that's my news. What do you think, Pato?
I don't know.
Okay.
I got nothing.
All right.
Nothing. I guess we'll well, I guess it kind of I don't want to try too hard to make connections. The Men in Black thing, I think there might be multiple explanations to that phenomenon in general. I think some of them, when we did the Men in Black episode, and we talked about the Aleister Crowley stuff, and we talked about the actually Alan Greenfield stuff too. There's a lot of people that suggest that these are not from the government.
Yes, I
These
agree.
are not terrestrial intelligences that work for some alphabet agency, and I think that I have heard enough stories to where that can make sense to me. I kind of get it, but that doesn't mean that there's not government people that go out and interview witnesses and kind of intimidate them and spook them a little bit. You know, just with the timing of this one, I'd say that if this did go down the way all parties report that it did, it makes a little bit more sense that it was a excuse me, that it was a something extraterrestrial in origin, but I don't know. You know,
Yeah. I don't, I mean, it's just a random report from the internet, but people ask all the time, do people still see Men in Black? Well, allegedly they do.
yeah.
Allegedly they do. And the reports are out there and they come in, every little bit. Nothing significant that I can think of. Actually, probably the most significant one that we've had in recent years was probably Dan Aykroyd. So
There you go.
I'm
And
serious.
he agrees with me. He didn't think that they were human. He thought that it was some kind of intelligence masking itself to what it thought humans should look like.
Yeah, so I'm once again putting a call out to the fans of the show to bother Dan Aykroyd on social media and convince him to come on the show and talk to us about his Men in Black stuff.
Yeah, I could probably get him on if I had to. I used to work at a hotel that he frequented, and I could blackmail the shit out of him, but I won't.
I'm telling you, you
So
have to.
we'll see. I've also bought enough of that Crystal Skull vodka to where I
Right.
single handedly kept that fucking company afloat in the aughts.
You've paid for an appearance at this point.
Yes, yeah. I get a
So
5-minute fucking Skype call from him.
I'm just saying. But anyway, that was my news for the week.
Here's my news. My news is all very, very local. So it's kind of three little tidbits, three little nuggets of news. Number one, 2 more firefighters have come forth about the Mothman sightings at O'Hare. This story was brought to us via our friends at guess where, UFO Clearinghouse. There's no names given, no more additional information. One of them actually, the third story that comes in goes back to 4th of July weekend, and it's described as a Batman once again, which I guess is what he's being referred to over at O'Hare if we believe the UFO Clearinghouse website. But yeah, just wanted to say more info's coming in through there. So check that website out if you want. And then also, and you and I were kind of commenting on this, the 14 Times magazine, the cover story of this month's 14 Time magazine is the Chicago Mothman. And they interview a character by the name of Jack Chavez. Now, Jack Chavez is somebody who I never directly mentioned on any of our previous shows, but he's involved with a lot of the Chicago paranormal groups. And when I did that filming stuff and I went to those conventions over the summer, he was kind of a figurehead. In fact, the one that I was at, I want to say he was the organizer. So this is a real person that I have met before. And according to this, which I have not read the article yet, I will track down this magazine probably and give it a read. This month's 14 Times, that he is not a witness, but he is someone that got to interview an eyewitness. So going back to, I think some of Tobias's, and Tobias and Emily are mentioned in the article as well. So because the guy Jack Chavez, he posted the magazine on his Facebook feed, and you can read the magazine article because he posted it, right? He took a picture of it and put it online, and you can see that the Waylands are brought up in there, and some other people too, Lon Strickler and the usual crew, and yeah, Jack Chavez just mentions that he had the opportunity to interview one of the doormen up on Chicago's north side. There was a bar doorman that was outside the bar that he worked at one night and happened to see this thing on a adjacent rooftop. So I guess that's kind of what we were asking for last
No,
episode.
it's not.
Well, we were saying, does somebody know somebody that saw something?
Nope.
This
Nope.
wasn't
Nope. Nope. Nope.
necessarily
Nope.
at
Nope.
O'Hare.
Exactly. That's exactly
Right.
that it right there. The witnesses that saw this thing outside of the Chicago O'Hare Airport, I 100% believe those witnesses. It is strictly the ones coming out of the airport that I am questioning.
So what's interesting that now they closed the article with a some sound bites from Tobias, which I thought was pretty cool. And they end the article with a teaser for a part two article in next month's magazine. So I definitely want to track this down. But the teaser reads, next issue, Mothman turns Mexican, jealousies erupt, and things fall apart. Which sounds to be just about where we're at right now.
Interesting.
Right?
Why is it Mexican? I don't.
Because I mean, if
That's a hell of a cliffhanger.
no, I mean, so the individual that runs the UFO clearinghouse is Hispanic, and all of his sightings come from the little village. And I kind of alluded to this last episode, but I didn't say, you can't say Mexican because people aren't always from Mexico just because they're Hispanic, right? So maybe they mean something different. But a lot of the UFO clearinghouse eyewitnesses and reporters, it's all Hispanic. So yeah, the fact that the teaser for the part 2 of this article is Mothman turns Mexicans, jealousies erupt, and things fall apart. I'll be very interested to see how they frame
Yeah,
that.
I am also.
Who the
Yes.
jealousies are, and at what point things fall apart. But it might be interesting. It might be worth checking out that article. So if you find yourself in the vicinity of a copy of the 14 Times magazine, pick it up, give it a read. And
Interesting.
the last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is kind of news, but it's kind of a public service announcement too, and we can talk about this for as long as or as little as you want. Yesterday, in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I talk about the neighborhood I grew up in a lot, south side of Chicago, and it's a big bar area. Bar culture is very big. At least 5, and I heard numbers upwards of 8 at 2 different locations, of people yesterday afternoon kind of just dropping at the bar from some fentanyl laced cocaine that was going around.
Oh no.
Yeah. Whereas at one bar, the 6 people got hospitalized because 5 people just boom dropped one after the other, and the bartender was trying to catch one of them and broke her ankle.
Oof.
And then supposedly there was a second location, although I haven't seen it reported in the news through the scuttlebutt that I'm connected. I may not have, you know, I may not have earpieces in the community telling me what the Mothman is doing at a given moment, but you get people ODing at bars, and my cell phone won't stop fucking blowing up. So, yeah, I mean, we, as you may or may not know, we are in the middle of NFL playoff season, and I think there was a Cowboys game on yesterday or something, and some people were at the bar on a Sunday afternoon fixing to have a good time, and unfortunately, they had bad coke. And you're talking about 5 people in a bar all fucking ODing on fentanyl just like that.
So who the hell's at the bar selling the fentanyl laced cocaine?
I'm sure. Well, so now there's a little bit of speculation there. Was it done intentionally? Did someone just get a bad batch? Was that bad batch intentionally brought into that area? Because that area were both of these bars. And like I said, the news is only reporting one bar, but I heard from a who knows source that there was a second bar too, where 2 people OD'd. You know, it's a lot of cops and firemen and city workers, and that's where I grew up. And if you're trying to really make a bunch of people look bad, I mean, there's everybody knows 5 people ODing at a fucking bar on a Sunday afternoon. You know exactly, like you know that story. You know what the deal is. They all bought bad coke. A bunch of fucking people sitting around shooting blow, doing blow, watching the
Right, is the
fucking Cowboys
bartender
game.
selling it? I mean, what the fuck? Where are they all getting? Somebody at that bar is selling that coke.
Well, someone at the bar had the coke. It doesn't necessarily mean they bought it at the bar. They could have brought it in with them. Someone could have
I
brought up an 8-ball
suppose.
and split up between their buddies, and they all fucking did a bump, and then getting ready for kickoff, and then boom, all 5 of them fucking fall back. So check your drugs. I don't the whole fentanyl thing, I got to admit I'm a hair too old to really have my finger on exactly what the deal is with it. But I know that you can get strips or something to test your shit.
Oh yeah.
So definitely, if you are a drug user, even if you're a drug user, and I hate to sound like a dad, but it goes back to that. When we were growing up, we were always told, if you do it just one time, if you do it just one time, you can get addicted, or you could have this kind of reaction, or you could die. And I pretty much proved that that's not true. But the thing is, with shit being laced, and this is an Irish white upper middle class neighborhood. Like, there's nobody had that in the back of their head, that was even a possibility of how that would go down. And now you got
Yeah.
5 people OD, and they got a lot of shit to explain to their fucking families, and are lucky they survived, you know. But
Yeah, if you're gonna do cocaine, or any drugs for that matter, do them safely.
which means, unfortunately, now you have to test your shit before you take it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the downside of buying even pot from your drug dealer, is that you don't know what's in it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it's it's out there, and I think it's weird. I think it's a weird. I don't understand why people are cutting coke with fentanyl unless they're doing it on purpose. Unless somebody is like, hey, I want to take that drug. I don't get what the benefit would be as a drug dealer to do that.
I don't know. I don't know if it's because it makes a little bit go a long way. When I was growing, coming of age, if we're not talking about what that '90s show would have been like about me and my friends back in the day, there would have been a lot more ecstasy. And when you took ecstasy back in the day, there was a pretty good chance that it might have been cut with heroin, because heroin is cheaper than MDMA. So when you're making pills, you could make pills that are 100% MDMA, or you can make pills that are 70% MDMA and 30% heroin. And luckily, heroin still gets you fucked up too. So you might not know the difference, or it might not be that big of a deal. But you could always tell if you had heroin pills, because you have lockjaw the next day. You know, um, you're like sitting there the next day
I
grinding your
understand
teeth.
that, but that does not make sense with fentanyl. It's actually it's more expensive to do fentanyl. Fentanyl's way more expensive than cocaine. So like you could just use cocaine and like save
Unless
lives.
there's an overabundance of one. I don't know. I honestly, I could not argue that. I don't know.
I've read a lot
So,
about it recently. So and
so maybe it was targeted. Maybe it was maybe listen, I unfortunately have known people to be sold bad drugs on purpose,
right.
because they owed somebody money, or they pissed off the wrong person the last time they were in jail or whatever. And that shit happens. So this is now, I don't know how high profile this story is going to get. I know that it was all over the we were all texting each other about it. Like, it spread like wildfire. Whether or not the press is going to pick up on it, I don't know. They might not, just out of, because this isn't necessarily the kind of thing that the news reports on, because they want this handled discreetly. But this is a fucking big deal. This is a big deal, and it was very scary, and it was very holy shit. Um, and I just wanted to share it with our listeners, because people party, and
And
with
there's
the
nothing wrong
Super
with
Bowl.
that.
Yeah, oh god, no, I'm the last person to fucking judge. But with the Super Bowl coming up and shit, I hate to go back to those, this turn this into fucking dare class again. But be careful, because all it takes is the wrong bump from the wrong person that doesn't even know they got bad shit, and you're down. And I don't know how many fatalities there were here. I had heard two, but I had heard that then they were all stable. So who knows? I mean, some of
Sure.
this stuff gets like blown out of proportion and shit. Like I said about the second bar too. I had heard it was 6 people at one bar and 2 people at another, and both the bars were right down the street from each other. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but just be careful. Just be careful out there.
Interesting. Well, speaking of conspiratorial true crime rings, I know. Let's get into this episode, huh?
Let's do it.
Whew, man, this is a doozy. What had you ever heard about this, Pato? You ever heard of Johnny Gosch before all this?
I had it's so I don't even I want to say yes, because I knew the basics, the disappearance, then the potential reappearance, right?
Sure.
And then from when we did another episode, which I won't, we'll probably get to a little bit later.
Sure.
I want to say that I knew that these two stories dovetailed in, but man, there's so many. This is such a bigger story. Has the potential to be such a bigger story, depending on how much you believe.
Yes.
And
Oh yeah.
I did not like it.
You didn't
Let me
like it.
let me just say this: don't, under any means, do not Google Johnny Gosch Polaroid. Don't do it. I know you're hearing it right now, and you're thinking about grabbing your phone while you're driving and googling Johnny Gosch Polaroid. Don't do it. And if you're stoned, definitely don't do it because you just ruined your afternoon. Total bummer. Not a good time.
Oh,
Anyway,
I was
please
like, what is
continue.
he talking about? And then I Googled it. So
See all those Polaroid. Oh, I don't.
I
Oh, those
did
kids
Google
don't
it.
look happy.
I got things to say about it. It's fine.
That's not a good time. Yeah,
That's not what kids should be doing at that
yeah.
age. Let me tell
That's
you.
not.
They should be doing cocaine with fentanyl in it like the rest of us.
They should be playing outside with sticks and hoops,
Yeah,
not
no,
all
that's
duct taped together in a hotel room somewhere.
duct taped together in a hotel room somewhere. We'll talk about it. We'll get there. There is so much. And here's the thing about it is that, you know what? We're probably not even going to barely scratch the surface of this rabbit hole. Just because I thought I was schooled on this, and apparently there's a lot that even I don't know. There's a lot that's
Mhm.
happened in like the last 3 years. I mean, it just continues. So this is definitely a case that after this episode, if it seems interesting to you, you'll definitely want to continue down the rabbit hole and keep up on, because it is still an ongoing case. So Johnny Gosch, it was a paperboy from Des Moines, Iowa. Okay. On the morning of September 5th, 1982, he left his home to go deliver the papers. Now, he was supposed to wake his dad up and he was supposed to go with him, but for whatever reason, that didn't happen. Instead, he went on by himself. Now, his mom was awake. She was actually up well, she now says initially that wasn't the story, but anyway, so he leaves, he takes the dog with him and he goes and picks up his papers. And a lot of people saw him picking up his papers. Some people had actually seen him talking to a man in a two-tone blue car. Okay, one kid reported specifically, but Johnny reassured him, "Oh, it was just some guy asking for directions," and he's like, "Oh, okay." And then another paperboy also noticed a man that was following Johnny, but didn't really. He thought it was weird, but he didn't really say anything about it. A neighbor had later on heard a car door slam and saw a silver Ford Fairmont Speedway. But Johnny was never heard from again after the second boy that reported him seeing being followed by the man. Now his parents, gosh, I got a frog in my throat. I've been doing nothing but talking all day. This sucks. I got the frog man in my throat. That's what it is. Um,
Oh, the places we could go with that.
Speaking of which, come to the Frogman Festival, March 4th. Anyway, back to your
How have we not promoted that yet? Yes, Frogman,
back to
March
your
4th.
pedophile ring
All
story.
right.
So the parents got woken up. They started getting weird calls from neighbors saying that their papers hadn't been delivered yet. So the parents went out. Well, the dad went out searching. He found Johnny's wagon and the dog and the papers, but he did not find Johnny. Noreen, and remember her, she was a big player in all this. Noreen ended up, she called the police. They didn't arrive for like 45 minutes. And then when they did show up, didn't really want to do anything about the disappearance, stating that Johnny was probably a runaway, that she had to wait so many hours before they would do anything about it. And she is very angry about how the investigation was handled. As a matter of fact, it was handled very badly. And we learned a lot from it since then.
Right. Yeah.
So that wasn't the right thing for the police to do, right? So Johnny disappears, right? Out of thin air. I don't think. Is there anything I'm missing? The date of the disappearance, Pato?
Oh no, you're good.
Okay. The story just continues to get weirder and weirder. Okay. So, within that same month in September, um, Noreen had learned of a report because her trust in the police was waning. So she would go on to hire multiple private investigators to find her son. They have offered up a reward to find him constantly. But she had found out later on about a tip that came in saying that in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a boy approached a woman and asked for help. He said, I need help. My name's John Gosch. And then two men came and dragged him away. Now, the woman had reported it initially to the police. They really didn't do anything about it. And she just felt so awful about it. She actually reported it twice. She reported it after she saw Johnny's face on national news that he was missing, and she said, "That's the boy that I saw, and that's what he told me his name was. That was him." And the police just kind of swept it under the rug.
Wow.
In 1984, right, so 2 years after Johnny went missing, an interesting character approached Noreen and told her, "Hey, I've got some delicate information that you might be interested in." And so she met up with this man. He said it went by the name of Sam Soda. Okay. And Sam reported, he said, "Well, here's what I've got for you. On this date and this time, another paper boy is going to go missing." And she's like, "Okay. Why are you telling me? Why aren't you telling the police?" And he's just like, "They don't care." She's like, "Okay." Well, guess what happened? On that date and time, another paper boy, a 12-year-old paper boy by the name of Eugene Martin, went missing in very similar circumstances to Johnny Gosch. And the
And it,
police still didn't really do anything about it. Go ahead.
wow, I never heard that. That's news to me.
Oh, Sam Soda is a big. Sam Soda is probably one of the prime suspects in the case. Um, and there's a couple of more. I mean, there's a couple more reasons why, and we'll get into it. Why he would go to Noreen and tell her that, I have no idea. I
Right.
really don't. Was he after a ransom? We don't know. Now, he was actually responsible for busting like a different pedophile and a different pedophile ring. So he was kind of going under the guise of like, I'm a pedophile hunter. He was like busting these rings up. But that could have also been his cover for his own sick, twisted fantasies. And that's how he knew these people, and he could turn them in for reward money, and kind of live off of that, while also being in the business himself. We'll get a little bit more into that soon.
Yeah, that's some pretty wild accusations there.
It is, but
I'm
I
sure it's
promise.
based. I'm sure it's founded in yeah. Okay, I'm listening. I'm
Well,
clearly not interrupting you. I'm just
no, it's
letting
okay.
you.
It's all right.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to tell it kind of chronologically because it's messy and
Right.
all over the place, and it is
Yeah.
the easiest way to do that. So like I said, Sam Soda predicted the disappearance of Eugene Martin. Now the police never tied in Eugene Martin to Johnny Gosch, and there was actually a third boy that disappeared that looked almost exactly like Johnny. He was 13. I can't remember his name. He wasn't a paper boy, but he told his mom he was going to leave to go to his friend's house, and he never showed up at his friend's house, never made it back home. Him and Eugene Martin both disappeared within a mile of each other. So, if Eugene and this other kid, which again I can't remember his name, are connected um, to each other, right? They're probably connected to each other, but then that could mean that they're also connected to Johnny. We don't know.
Hmm.
So in 1985, a dollar bill surfaces. Okay. And it has writing on it, and it says, "I am alive, Johnny Gosch." And Noreen goes crazy. She knows it. She knows her son is alive. And she starts really, really, pushing it like this is a thing. In 1985, Noreen got pushed over the edge, again in 1985, actually, same year as the dollar, got pushed over the edge when a gentleman by the name of Robert Meyer told her that, "I have information about your son, and I will give it to you if you give me $11,000.
What a
And
fucking scumbag.
yeah. And they did, right? They gave him the $11,000, and so he said, "Well, I was a guard at this motorcycle club, and your son was kidnapped and brought to that motorcycle club and sold into sex trafficking. He was sold as a child sex slave." And would not give any more details than that until they gave him $100,000. Okay. Well, they did not get the chance. They were going to give him the money. They were more than happy to do it, but the police kind of, intercepted this whole ordeal and arrested Mr. Meyer, right in Buffalo, and found out that he was some 19-year-old kid. Okay. So for him to say, and this is what, 3 years later, right? For him to say that he was a guard at this motorcycle club, he would have been like 16. It was very unlikely that he was part of any
Right.
motorcycle club. So they arrested him and charged him with, it was like some type of fraud, some type of
Sure.
money laundering, some type of, something, which rightfully so, the guy's an asshole. But Noreen, she was thought that this was true. She was convinced that this was true. Just because of, the woman in Tulsa that claimed to see her son and those claims, the dollar bill. Sam Soda was talking a lot about these pedophile rings, and she was like, oh my God, my son's alive. She had some type of hope. Things weren't made much easier in 1988 when a letter was typed up and sent to the Gosch home that was from Johnny, that said, things like, I can't ever come home. I don't look the same. I don't know exactly what the letter said. I think it is probably somewhere you could read it online. But he cataloged some terrible things that it was he was doing. They were making porn. They were, being prostituted out, things like that. And just, he wanted to touch base and let his family know he was okay. And it was, signed your son, your son, Johnny Gosch. And Noreen 100% believes that's from Johnny. Are you with me so far?
I'm right there.
Because it's getting ready to get fucking nuts. Okay. So far to me, okay, at this point in the story, everything just sounds like people taking advantage of this poor woman,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I mean, this is big news. They were out everywhere. She was everywhere, and she hated the police, and she was really trying to find her son, which understandable. It's your child. You're going to do everything that you can. But it seems like people, I don't like the dollar bill thing. Well, anybody could have done that.
Right. And he was the first milk carton kid, right? Like where they put the kid's face on the back of a milk carton. Have you seen me?
Him and Eugene Martin were the second and the third.
Okay.
Yeah, they were one of the first. That's correct.
Yeah.
So that was started, and then they also eventually, Noreen fought enough. She got funds from the United States government to create the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
Right.
Is where this, so it's a big case. But yeah, like I said, the dollar bill, anybody could have done that. The type letter, anybody could have done that. People report seeing people that are missing all the time, and it ends up, well, that person was dead in a ditch this whole time, so it wasn't them. That happens. Well, things got really weird when a guy by the name of Paul Bonacci, when he came forward and was the witness to something entirely fucking different. Okay, something just not even related at all, or at least we thought not related to any of this. Paul was being held on charges of his own. He was a sex offender himself, but he was a young guy. He's 21, and Paul started spinning a lot of yarns about how he had been sexually exploited his entire life. And not just that, but the people that he was being sexually exploited by were people in power. And as a matter of fact, it's all tied to this Franklin sex ring thing.
Right. Yeah.
That is a whole other thing. That's a whole other conspiracy.
So that just, do you want me to do like 5 seconds on that?
Cliff notes, yeah.
So,
Please.
all right. So what happened with that was there was a a politician by the name of Larry King, not that Larry King, but a
Oh,
different Larry
okay.
King, who was and he was a Republican chairman of the National Black Republican Council, sang the national anthem at the 1984 Republican National Convention, known for extravagant spending, throwing $100,000 parties. And in April of 1988, the FBI raided his bank and charged King with embezzling nearly $40 million. And when they started going through his books, they saw that he had ties to an Omaha, Nebraska based prostitution ring. And he was the general manager of the Franklin Federal Credit Union, right? So, a Republican politician based out of Nebraska, general manager of the Franklin Credit Union, gets raided by the FBI, and they found that he had been he had financial dealings with known sex traffickers, as well as Boys Town, a nationally renowned orphanage. Okay. And people started coming forward saying that they were part of the Boys Town system, including Bonacci,
Yeah.
and that they had been flown to Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C. to participate in pedophilic orgies.
Right.
And that sometimes they would like fucking kill like the other kids and shit.
Yes, Bonacci had crazy, when you look up this guy and look at like some of the other things, that he was saying, it would be like snuff films.
Yes, and there's YouTube
And
videos of the interviews with him as well.
yeah,
So the Senate hired a private investigator by the name of Gary Caradori to separate the weed from the chaff and compile evidence. He was a former state trooper, was working as a private investigator. He drew up leads for 60 potential victims and conducted videotaped interviews that added up to 21 hours of testimony.
yeah,
In July of 1990, while allegedly in possession of photographs that he had gotten from a source of King's sex parties, his plane blew up over Illinois. Him and his 8-year-old son were killed, and all the evidence was lost.
yeah. This is a topic worthy of its own episode.
So, part of it. So, I'm just gonna say it all ties back to Gacy too. So, but yeah, let's rewind a little bit.
We will get there. Yeah, I'm almost at the prompt for Gacy.
Okay.
Because Paul has direct ties to Gacy, so
right.
So this guy Paul, he's sitting in jail and he starts talking to his lawyer about all these things, and somehow they get on the topic of Johnny Gosch. Actually, I think it was Paul who initially brought up this kid Johnny. I don't even think he said Johnny. I don't even know if he said his name or not. Paul mentioned that he was with another individual in Iowa at that date and time and helped kidnap a paperboy. And Jesus, I'm having this damn frog man, I swear. He's getting to me. Anyway. So he said that he helped kidnap a paperboy. So the lawyer is like, well, was it this paperboy? And shows him a picture of Johnny Gosch, and he says, yes, that's him. And not only did I help kidnap him, but as a matter of fact, I saw him again later on, just a little bit ago. And so they were kind of on top of it. Now, so the family wasn't initially informed about this. Actually, the dad was. Now, they had a different private investigator at the time, someone else that they had hired. He came in and let Mr. Gosch know what was going on. I think his name's Johnny also, John Sr. And he let him know what was going on. But John did not tell Noreen. He didn't want to tell her what was going on, because she was already so convinced that her son was sold into sex slavery that he, I guess, didn't want to upset her. We don't really know. Who knows? And actually, I don't think he ever did tell her. I believe it was the private investigator who let the beans spill on that. But John Sr. goes and talks to Paul. He has a meeting with him. And as soon as he walked in, before he even said who he was, Paul was like, "Oh my gosh, you look exactly like Johnny." And he knew who he was. Okay. So he sits down with Paul and they're just talking about, again, some of these things that, they did with these kids, the pornography and the stuff and the things like that. And Johnny's alive. And, well, they needed information. I mean, how could they know he was telling the truth? Well, Paul accurately named several scars that Johnny had, including his famous birthmark on his chest. Now, the birthmark had been disclosed in the news before, but some of the other stuff didn't, like how he had a scar on his tongue from his tongue being burned. Um, and apparently Johnny had this like specific stammer that he kind of stuttered a lot when he was very upset. And Paul mentioned that. So John Sr. wanted to kind of test Paul and see, how this was possible, or, see if, what kind of ties he had. Well, at that point in time, the family was already very suspicious of this Sam Soda character. So he slips a photo of Sam Soda to the lawyer. They have Paul pick out a lineup because Paul had like told a story about how they were getting a kid for some man specifically to purchase. Okay. He was with a nefarious character. I don't remember his name. And another guy was wanting to purchase the kidnapped child from them. Well, he had a series of photographs from different kids, and he had one of Johnny, and that's the one that he wanted. And so that's their target. They were already planning on getting this kid. When he picked out who that person was in the lineup, he perfectly pinpointed Sam Soda and called him Sam. He said, "That's Sam. That's him. That's the guy." And none of this information had been out to the public, really. I mean, none of the Sam Soda stuff was out there. There's no way that he would have known who this guy was otherwise. Well, so yeah, so this all kind of happens. Now, again, Paul is an interesting guy. He has been diagnosed with, multiple personality disorder, but the correct term is dissociative identity disorder. He definitely has a lot of mental issues. But he was pinpointing a lot of the stuff. Now, the contrary to that, his siblings came forward and said that it couldn't have been Paul because Paul was home during that time. He wasn't out running around with a sex ring. He was home when Johnny was abducted. But Paul disagrees. Paul was featured on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries where he went to the house that he had seen Johnny at later. That house, turns out, was owned by a convicted sex offender and pedophile, actually. I don't remember that guy's name, but he says he was a part of it. And then also Paul's stepfather. This is where it gets really fucking weird. Paul's stepfather was the father of John Wayne Gacy's first victim.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and we've talked about Gacy before.
Right. And there's another connection to, so this is where it gets so confusing. So just like, let's reiterate that for a second. The John Wayne Gacy's friend, right? Because that's why he was able to get away with killing that first kid, because he was giving the kid a ride to like tap dance school or some shit, right? A dance competition.
Yeah, I remember.
All right. Him and Gacy had they both worked at the same flea market or fucking whatever, right? One of his sons gets killed by Gacy.
Yeah.
The other one of his sons is a famous sex trafficking victim. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, what are the fucking chances?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely none.
Yeah. Very small chances. Now, it is.
Are you ready to?
It is important to note this. Okay. So, I mean, if you are very curious about the deep dive on Gacy and you have not listened to the John Wayne Gacy episode that we did, you absolutely need to go listen to that. It is a damn good episode. Very interesting. Just for, again, cliff notes, some of the things, one of the victims that survived said that there was more than one people attacking him. It wasn't just wasn't just Gacy. Gacy had said that other people were involved, but there was never anything that came out of that. But Gacy was apprehended in 1978, and that is before Johnny Gosch went missing. He went missing in 1982. So it's not Gacy that abducted him, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't potentially be some type of tie there.
Well, there was the Delta. Was it the Delta Project or something?
Yeah.
With David Norman, John David Norman.
Yeah, and that's a whole again. That's another episode, and eventually, I think we should cover it.
But that is somebody. So John David Norman was, and this is not conjecture. This is actually proven. He was running one of the biggest known organized pedophile rings in the 70s, and he was doing it through the classified ads of gay newspapers, and he was even doing it from prison at some point. And when the police raided his apartment in New York, and I believe he had residencies in Chicago and actually Homewood, which isn't too far from me, he had boxes filled with index cards, which were some of them were potential clients, people that he had done business with, and the other one was like kids, like stock that he had, and he had the kids hidden in different parts of the country. And this was before internet. This is where they literally needed to be trafficked by people.
Right.
The kid was in Ohio right now, fucking around with some police chief. And when he was done in Ohio, they had to get him up to Grand Rapids because he was going to be at some party or something. Right. So it was fucking Underground Railroad, right, for these kids. And somebody that was claims to be one of his victims is and I'm going to screw up his name. It's not Bonaducci. But what's his name? Bonacci? Bonacci.
I just call him Paul.
Yeah. Bonaducci. Bonacci. Bonacci gives an interview that you can find on YouTube where he talks about being a part of this organization and seeing the index cards and what the system meant. And the police found this when they raided John David Norman's residencies. They found all this information. They never released who belongs to any of it. And it was kind of like the precursor to the Epstein flight logs. You know what I mean? It's like, the Epsteins were arrested for trafficking to who? To nobody, right? There's no
right.
So and that was kind of the situation where they ended up putting Norman in jail for sodomy or something because they had proved that he had gay sex once, and that was enough to throw him in jail back then. But they didn't really they couldn't really get him on all this other stuff because
what a fucking time to be alive where you can fucking be convicted for sodomy but not for child sex trafficking.
Oh, it's like getting Capone for tax evasion. It's a very Chicago way to go about things,
right? Yeah, so yeah, Bonacci has I mean, it sounds crazy. The things that he said sounded absolutely ridiculous, and there are people that question whether or not the lawyer kind of coached him into some of these confessions or if the guy really is onto something. The lawyer definitely could have disclosed information to him that wasn't made public and coached him into some type of confession, some type of story. But, the fact remains that, like I said, when his information is tested, it's been proven every time, So how the fuck did he pick out Sam Soda? How would he do that unless he was specifically told to do that?
Right.
And then if he is specifically told to do that, well, what the hell did this lawyer have to gain from all of this? That's a whole nother story. You know what I mean? Like, why was he doing this to this, mentally ill individual? But for the most part, people believe Paul's, account of things and, kind of how that works. So, for the most part, I think I'm kind of done with the details on that. Was there anything I'm missing related to that the particular ring? Because my next thing is the visit.
No, I have an anecdote that I want to throw in at the end about stuff because did I ever tell you the story about working in the hotel industry and the kid that I used to come across?
I don't think so.
I'm just going to get this out real quick. So I used to work in the hotel industry for about 11 years. And there was and this was before, now human trafficking, like awareness training is part of every major hotel brand, right? This is something that you have to do when you get hired, something you have to do once a year when you're watching your don't fuck your coworkers videos, don't make fat jokes around fat people, shit like that, right? How to spot human trafficking. Back then it wasn't a thing, right? And there was this I'd say man in his early 60s and a younger man that was a teenager that would stay at the hotel that I worked at rather frequently. And I always remembered them because whenever they came in town, the son would have a PlayStation, I don't know, let's say a PlayStation 3 or whatever it was back then. It might have been a 4. He had a gaming system that he would always need help hooking up to the TV. So they'd always call me up to the room to give him a hand with it, right? And the first time you wouldn't think anything of it. But, like, the 5th time, you start to remember these people because it's such a you don't get that request that often, and it was always these people, and it was always this guy in his 60s with this kid staying in a king-size bed suite and hooking up the PlayStation, and, at the time when I was doing it, the more I started to see these people, it seemed odd. The kid seemed I'd have to communicate with him like, well, do you have an HDMI cord or like blah blah, you know what I mean? Because like you're setting it up with him, and he was very awkward to talk to, almost like he wasn't used to talking to people, and my exchange between me and him was very kind of forced, or like it was not a normal exchange that you would have with a person, right?
Sure.
Also, they would stay a lot, and it would be, like, in the middle of the week. It would be, like, on a Tuesday night, right? Whereas this kid should have been in school or something, you know what I mean? Like, why wasn't he this wasn't just a weekend. It wasn't like, oh, they'd always come by and it would be Friday night and we'd be setting up and they'd be staying for the weekend. It was always, in the middle of the week. And they had accents too that I would describe as being not necessarily Southern accents, but definitely rural accents. Like they weren't from Chicago, they weren't from the Midwest. Maybe they were from North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Omaha, something like that, right? And once again, at the time, did I think it was weird? A little bit, but nothing too nefarious, I guess I'd say. But in retrospect, I wouldn't be surprised that kid was being trafficked.
Ooh.
You know what
Well,
I
and I
mean?
mean, right, because teenagers can be kind of weird. So, like, when you talk to them, I mean, I don't know. I guess
He
I
wasn't
could
that much of a
understand that.
teenager. He had to be like 13, 14ish. He was a little bit older, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the old guy, he was always there. He was always like in the background, just kind of fuddling around. And, he never left the room with the two of us, or the kid never called me up there when the kid was by himself. He was just this older man's travel companion in this king size, this king size suite with one bed. And, they would come through the Chicagoland area. I mean, I probably, like I said, I worked there 7 years, but at that specific location, 7 years. But I probably saw them at least 5 times, so they came by maybe once a year or something. And who knows how many times they came through and I didn't run into them. I don't know,
Yeah,
you know.
true.
But it was very bizarre. And in retrospect, after doing enough of these stories, maybe I'm connecting dots where there are no dots there. But it sounds like it could have been something where it could have been a trafficking situation. You know,
Gross.
yeah, very gross. You know,
Very gross. Well, anyway, so that's it could have been Johnny Gosh. It wasn't, but it
no,
was too young.
no.
Um, but yeah, so again, okay, I'm not gonna get there yet. Okay, let's just keep moving forward because there's still more. There's still more, you guys. It's not even. There's still more. So, okay. March of 1997. Let's get into this one. Fucking weirdest thing so far. The night that he came home. Johnny, that is. Johnny came and well, Noreen was awakened at 2:30 in the morning by a knock at the door, and there's her son. She says, he at this time would be 27, and he was accompanied by another young man. She said his hair was dyed black, but it was definitely him. They sat down and chit chatted for about an hour and a half. What seems to be the story here is that him and I think four others are in the sex ring, okay, and they were able to steal a car and get away. So he can't stay for long, and he, it can't tell her all the details, but he's there, and he wanted to see her and let her know that he was okay. The other man, his name was never disclosed or anything like that. Again, they stayed for an hour and a half, and then he left. What do you think about that one, Pato?
I don't know why. I mean, well, I think either the mom's making it up. I don't think it was. There's a lot of weird aspects to that. Um, did the mom imagine it?
Yeah, some people think
Did
that she may have dreamt it.
Right? Did the mom imagine it? If the kid really did, why wouldn't they stay there? Why wouldn't they? Why'd they have to stay on the run?
Right.
That does, and why would you stay for an hour and a half, if at all? Um,
Right, especially because like they said that initially when they stole the car, they'd been staying at somebody else's another kid's family member's house for like 4 days, and then also, so if these kids had escaped, well now they're adults, but if they these kids had escaped and were visiting their family members and touching base with them, why didn't other reports come out about that? Why didn't that the kid that was with him, like
yeah,
why didn't his parents come out and say, hey, guess what, our son came by?
that's there's a certain there's so much to this story that I think could occupy itself in the realm of just like, I hate to say it, but like what is it about this narrative that some people are attracted to? It's so horrific.
Yeah.
It's so gruesome. It's so like inconceivable, and yet we love to conceive it. We love to think about it. If I was a parent, this would be the last thing that I'd want. I'd be praying that my kid was dead. I'd rather think that a Thunderbird fucking picked him up
I
and
agree.
flew off with him
Yeah.
than he's being passed around this fucking sex circuit,
And living a
you
life
know.
with secrecy forever
Yeah,
on the run.
like why if you don't have definitive proof, why would you be like, I just know my Johnny's getting fucked somewhere? Like that's terrible.
Yeah, that is
Why
terrible.
why would you bend over backwards to subscribe to that when there's really not concrete evidence to suggest that?
But it could have also, now again, this is 1997. This is 15 years after Johnny went missing. At this point in time, Noreen had become a huge voice in these missing kids and pushing this narrative of the pedo ring. Okay, so she had become a kind of a celebrity in and of herself. Somebody very well could have pretended to be Johnny and showed up at her house.
That's true, and that's the thing too, is that you kind of open yourself up to that when you become that much of a figure, is that people do wanna come after you for money. They do wanna come after you to try to shake down. Now, I don't know, and the fact that when you talk about in the '90s now, but when this whole thing initially went down, we were in the middle of the satanic panic with the daycare scandals and
Oh
the
yeah.
the fucking D&D and heavy metal music and all this shit. So like there was, I don't know, maybe a propensity to want to believe these type of stories. It was something that we were all afraid of. I mean, someone took the kid. It's not like he evaporated, right? But could he be a part of this grand design, or maybe he's just dead in a blue barrel somewhere buried in someone's backyard,
Yeah,
you
we'll
know?
kind of get there a little bit more. I got a lot more to say about Noreen,
Okay, go
Mrs.
ahead.
Mrs. Gosh. Right, because then what's interesting is that so that happened in 97. In 2006, September 2006, almost the anniversary to Johnny's disappearance. Photos were left at Noreen's doorstep. Remember that photo Pato told you not to Google? Um, well, that was one of them. There was more. Okay, so there were a total of three photographs, two of which featured children being bound and gagged. Um, the third one being like what looked like a dead body, and I can't find that fourth one, but it was like the dead body of a grown man. Okay, now when she gave these to the police, okay, the police received an anonymous letter from someone else that said, "Listen, those photos, because these photos ended up going to the media. I mean, everybody shared them everywhere." And she was like, "That's him. That's my son. My son's in that picture." Okay, and when it went to the media, somebody wrote into the police department and said, "Listen, I am from Florida. Okay, and these photos originated from here." And they are from 1978. They've been investigated already and cleared. It was just a bunch of kids trying to play some weird escape game. And so the sheriff's office there in Des Moines got a hold of the sheriff's office where the claim was coming from. They got a hold of the detective that worked on the case, Nelson Zelba, and Nelson did verify that yes, these photographs are of these particular kids. I did receive them. I did investigate them back in 1978. It's nothing. That's not Johnny. These were just kids having fun.
Hmm.
But at this point, who knows, if that's true or not. But I mean, just because of all the weird, I mean, if the big pedo rings to be believed, then how can we trust that these weren't legitimate photos?
I, you know, I don't know. That's so evil though to do to a woman. Like when you think about it, like think that's not a joke. That's not a prank. Like think about how fucked up that is.
But think about all the stuff that let's just pretend he's that kid. Let's just pretend Johnny went and disappeared that day in 1982 and he's dead that day. Then think about all the other stuff that people have done to this woman. It is cruel, but I mean, she just seems like a victim of that. She wants to believe so badly that he's alive that she believes that those are pictures of her son. Now,
But some of those people had motivation. Some of those people were trying to get money, or they were jailhouse confessions because they were trying to get maybe something knocked off their sentence, or they wanted to seem like cooperating witnesses, or who knows what, right? But something done that's done anonymously like that, that's just fucking with someone for the sake of fucking with them.
I
Like
mean, you're right.
I could see like, hey, this is the chance to make 11 grand. I mean, I'm not saying I condone that, but that I could wrap my head around that. That makes sense to me. But
But
we're just going to drop these pictures anonymously off on this woman's doorstep and then go hide behind the bushes as she opens the door, looks at them, and then fucking screams or like that's. I guess, but if we can concede that we live in a world where there's pedophile rings in the first place, and we realize that that kind of evil exists, then like how much of it is a head scratcher that there's people that would get their kicks just fucking torturing this lady.
but this is, I mean, this was in the year 2006, okay? And during that time, the internet was very well known for ruining people's lives just because.
Right. Yeah.
We have very well documented cases of individuals who have killed themselves because of internet bullying and harassment. Um, Worse things than that. I mean, so I mean, it sucks, but I really wouldn't put it past some jack off on the internet just talking about this on a 4chan message board and going, you know what, I'm gonna find that lady. I got these pictures here. I'm gonna find that lady's address and send these pictures to her. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, it's shitty, but that is believable that it's fake. Um, so that was like the last major thing that happened with this. Another thing I want to sidebar on for a minute is the Jeff Gannon conspiracy. Did you come across this, Pato?
No, I can't keep these fucking names straight. I
It's
wish that I
okay.
was like I wish I was watching this documentary and they gave people like colored hats.
And we should have
Like
done that. I mean, honestly, like I didn't realize how deep all this was. We probably should have been researching this like months ago to really get
I
the
mean,
full rabbit
we
hole.
need to use like Legos. Like we need to like be like, okay, like this is John Norman. This is John Wayne Gacy, right? This is fucking what's his name? The Paskey guy that was the Phil Paskey, who
Yeah.
was a lifeguard for the city of Chicago. Like there's
So
fucking
I don't think that this one in particular holds any water. However, there are some weird things to it, and I'm like I said, just kind of an honorable mention. There are some people who think that Jeff Gannon is Johnny Gosch. Jeff Gannon was a White House press representative during the Bush administration. Okay, so he's like a man in politics. And this was like a big fucking thing, like to the point to where like he was very aware of the rumors going on, because this man came into the White House as a press representative, and nobody really knew where he came from. He had no history, no background, but he had visited the White House multiple times, and nobody really understood what he was doing there up until he became the press representative. Okay, some people say that he looks like Johnny, that he it lines up right, the dates that he was born or how old he is lines up with Johnny. um he again has a very weird history. Nobody really knows who his family is, where he's from, anything like that. And it got so big that people would have this man on like Fox News and shit, and they'd be demanding him take a DNA test to prove that he's not Johnny Gosh, and he never did. He never did. He kept saying that he would take one, but then he never did. So it's kind of a weird thing, and who knows? Some people think that maybe it's because he didn't really disclose much information, because he maybe did have something to hide in his past, but not necessarily that he's Johnny. But maybe there was something else. I mean, that when I came across this, okay, and it's a big one, and this there's a whole Reddit about Johnny Gosh. Go check that shit out. I'm telling you. But they have a whole website of like timelines, and I mean, there's an actual website of like just Johnny Gosh, and it's crazy. But when I came across this whole thing, I was like, you know what? I have already hit my limit in the
Yeah,
rabbit hole.
I'm Googling the Jeff Gannon thing now, and Vanity Fair has a fairly informative article written about it. Um, yeah, he's a hack. He's a fake. But I think it's just one of those things where, I mean, who was the Theranos chick, right? That blonde, that hot blonde that faked the blood testing thing. Remember that? That was just in the news. You know what I'm talking about, right?
No, I don't, but that's
Oh
okay.
my God! Don't
It
make me
don't
look
matter.
that up. Theranos. Hold on. It's gonna take 2 seconds. I just watched the show with uh with my wife, Elizabeth Ann Holmes, right? She's the hot blonde that said that she created this device that could test blood for millions of, not millions, but like hundreds of different things, right? And it was a device that they put in Walgreens, and it pricks your finger and it collects the blood sample, and then they can do all this testing with it. And it was bullshit. The technology didn't exist. It was a lie. She faked the results. She fooled the investors. People wanted to believe her because she was this sexy blonde chick that wore black turtlenecks like Steve Jobs, and eventually caught up with her and all came crashing down. Jeff Gannon seems like the same thing. I don't think he's like a resurfaced like sex trafficker. Why would you do that? Why would you take one of your victims and then make him stand up in front of the press every night? Is that like a
Not that
testament
he's
to?
the sex trafficker. He is Johnny Gosh. He's the sex
That's what I
trafficker.
mean. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Why would you take someone who had been ritualistically abused for decades and then give him the job of White House press secretary, where his whole entire job is to get up in front of reporters and not talk about how he was fucked in the ass for 35 years? Like, I guess if you want a testament to how good your conditioning and brainwashing is, there'd be no better thing than that. But it also seems like entirely risky, you know. But like, why would you get? It's like put the microphone in front of the sex trafficking victim, but don't get them. But trust they won't say anything.
I agree. It would be a bold move to make. But
That's
why
kind
didn't
of.
he just take a DNA test to prove that he wasn't?
Oh, because he's probably, who knows what the fuck that dude's hiding. I honestly, I haven't spent more than 3 minutes looking at the Jeff Gannon thing, so I don't want to comment on it too much. But I
Yeah.
think that it talks about one of the holes in this story in general is that, listen, let's pretend that you're the type of organization that kidnaps young boys so that they can be sexually abused and sometimes killed for the sake of other rich people, right? Why would you let any of these people grow past 17?
Yeah, I agree.
The second their butt wears out, or they know too much, or they've seen too much, why the fuck would you let them live?
Yeah.
The idea that Johnny Gosh is out there somewhere 40 something years old. No, why? Why? Why would they live for that? Why would they be allowed to live that long?
No.
We've already established how cheap human life is to these people. Just kill them. That's
Yeah.
how you get away with things. You just fucking kill them. You don't let a bunch of them drive around and fucking. It's just that's where it starts to fall apart for me. You know, I think
Yeah.
that's the only thing about this that doesn't
Well,
seem very believable.
and so Noreen is still out there. Okay, she's still fighting the good fight. But let me ask you this: if your son visited you and told you that he was alive, why are you still looking for him? Like, if that actually happened and you believe that that's what happened, why would you still be looking for him? I mean, I understand like putting out something, every little bit and being like, "Oh, we love you," but she's still like looking for evidence. Like they just made this documentary in 2015 called "Who Took Johnny," and I mean, the whole point of it was to get his face out there. She's still doing like making them do renditions of him now that he's old, but she's fucking crazy. Okay. So she's a QAnon supporter. Okay. She is.
Well, makes sense. I mean, makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, she thinks that, the rich are sucking up adrenochrome from the children, type of QAnon supporter. She's all about the satanic panic, um, which, we know is bullshit. I mean, frankly, and people were convicted and ostracized and things like that over things that weren't real. Um, she's very much lost her fucking mind. Now, let me say something about this woman. I will say this because, yeah, she's nuts, right? I kind of don't blame her. Before she got together with Johnny's
Right.
father, she had already had like some trauma of her own. She actually has two older kids besides Johnny, so they actually were hit with a really bad tornado. As a matter of fact, her children were caught up in that tornado, and they lived. They did survive, but I mean, it was a devastating type of situation. And then just a couple of weeks after they lose everything from this tornado, her husband died. And then she went on to go remarry and try to rebuild her life. And then she has this, this other child, and this, they're living their life. It's good. And then he gets abducted, and then on top of that, all the other shit that followed that abduction, right? I mean, if we think that these are people that just were messing with her, she thinks that she doesn't think, but there is some conspiracy that his dad was involved in it. Johnny's dad was
I was
involved
gonna
in it.
say, especially after the Gacy thing,
Yeah, they thought that
where you have
he
someone that's
planned
potentially,
this.
yeah,
That he knew he purposefully did not go with Johnny. The one time he didn't go with Johnny and he was abducted, purposefully did not go with him so that he was at the mark, right, when the people came and abducted him. And some people think that he had to have been in on it in order for that to happen. Um, here's what I think. Here's where I think Johnny is. Okay, because this seems a lot more plausible than any of the other stuff that the man is still alive. He's not. I don't think so. I think that he was abducted that day and he was raped and killed that day. And his body is living in a shallow grave somewhere, then he'll probably never be found. That's what I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
And I think that's what happened to those other kids too. I think there probably was an active pedophile slash, weirdo in the area. He killed a couple of the kids. Who knows? Maybe died, maybe didn't. There is another suspect that people think could be the guy who's responsible for it. But I didn't want to mention his name. He is dead now, but he didn't have any family. He was a pedophile, as a convicted sex offender, and he did own a house with a lot of property on it. He did end up moving at some point out of Des Moines and went to, I think, Kansas or something. And he's got maybe some suspicions over there, but he died, and people stopped getting molested and disappearing, and he's probably the guy. But I don't want to name him because I don't know what kind of family members he's got out there still, just in case. But I think that's what happened. I think he was killed that day, and I think that's when it ended. And I hope that's what happened. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, because I agree with Pat O, I would hate to think that my child would go on to live that kind of life. I'd rather them just be dead.
Right, I agree. I mean, if something like this happened to one of my kids, I'd go crazy.
Exactly. Like I said,
I'd
I'm
go
blaming
absolutely
Noreen.
crazy. And I think the mom, her hysteria, I mean, if it looks like she was able to channel some good out of it. One of the first things you mentioned about the police and how they handled it back then, that was the whole. And if you watch old enough movies, you see this brought up from time to time. You used to have to wait till someone was missing for 72 hours before you could
Yeah.
report them, and it's not like that anymore with kids. You
No.
can start looking immediately. So,
And people don't know that still.
yeah, that would. I mean, that was you. I remember when I was younger, I would see it in TV shows and movies where
Right.
that would be a thing, and that's not a thing anymore.
Not a thing anymore.
That's for the best. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of this was a tragedy. She was able to weaponize the tragedy and made a lot of changes that need to be made. Um, the whole it's weird that we keep coming back to this pedophile ring thing. There's certain aspects of it that we know are true. That we know are true, right?
Yes. Hmm.
And there's stuff that we don't know, but there's still a lot that we don't know. And what's unfortunate is that the police don't seem to always do their job, but I
Yeah.
think that the police in general don't always seem to do their job. So I don't know if it's necessarily them turning a blind eye to these things or if it's just the casual ineptitude that you see the police exhibit from time to time. Um, and as a parent, it's your biggest fear. So it's something that is like a dog whistle to you. You hear this stuff being talked about, you hear about these cases, your mouth goes dry, you immediately tense up because you think, oh my God, what about my kid? Oh my God, what if this happened to my kid?
Yeah.
And that's why I think these stories will always live on and they'll always be things that people talk about and are fascinated by because most of us out there are parents and we can appreciate this and we can we it's like a real life horror movie that we get to watch that we could potentially be a part of one day. Why do people like horror movies in general? It's horrific stuff. It's because there's something we like being scared. We like being, and these stories scare us as parents. And not necessarily, even if you're not a parent, even if you're just a decent human being, this
Right.
stuff should give you the heebie jeebies. Yeah. So, there's a lot here. There's a lot here, especially with the Gacy connections and the different pedophile rings and the Franklin Credit Union. Like there's stuff that we know is true, and you can kind of draw lines between them.
Yeah, I agree.
And that I don't think has ever been fully explored. And there's a reason why, and I don't know if we know what that reason is. And I hate to be super topical and of the moment, but look at the Epstein stuff.
Right. We know this stuff is
How
possible.
and we know and that it just goes away
Right.
and it doesn't get examined. And why not?
Yeah, I
Why
agree.
not? Why not? And there's an answer to that question. And we don't know what it is. We can't say definitively what it is. Is it because this is much larger than what we are that what we can find out it is? And then and as much as we laugh about the satanic connections and the satanic panic stuff, take it a step further though. If we know this stuff is real, and we know that these large scale operations exist, and we know that they somehow they persist, they continue, and they go uninterrupted, and when there is a snag, when someone does get caught, it gets handled as discreetly as possible. What is this all about? Is it just about fucking 10-year-old boy ass, or is it about something else? Is this just about sex? Is this just about sex? Something this devious, something this potentially dangerous, something this devastating to people. Is this just about sex or is it about something else that we can't even conceptualize because we don't fully understand the rules to the game? And I think that's why people bring in all this crazy supernatural shit, right? The adrenochrome, the satanic sacrifice, the Moloch. Although Moloch isn't a fucking god or Baal worship or whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever weird conspiracy they tie it into. Like, I'm not saying I think any of those are necessarily true, but I get why. Because your average person can't conceptualize why something this big, this well organized would operate in secret. What would the need for it be? Is it just about sex?
Yeah, I
You
agree.
know? And if it is just about sex, then wow, there's that many people out there. There's that many pedophiles out there. Or is it that pedophiles aren't born, they're created? You know what I mean? Are they
Well,
born that way, or is it a predilection that you develop over time?
well, both. I think.
I mean, I don't know. I ain't trying to answer that fucking question. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, this is where this is why I don't like doing these episodes.
Well, some of that stuff can be easily answered. I mean, look how people look at situations like banging underage girls. I mean, just look at like age gaps, right? It's fucking wrong for, well, let's even flip flop the roles just so people don't try to be like, oh, women think that way. It's wrong for a 50-year-old woman to go after a 21-year-old boy. It's wrong. It's incorrect. Your brain is not fully developed until well after you're 25. At least 25, right? But a lot of people think that's okay because it's legal and it's fine. So it's fine, right? It's fine. Well, what about early 20-year-old somethings banging 16-year-olds? That's still not fine. It's not fine for a female teacher to bang her male student. Those things are not okay.
I agree. I agree.
Those things aren't okay, but we live in a society where like people high five over that shit. You know, you see a news article about like a teacher getting caught banging her student, and all the guys in the comments are like, "Hell yeah, brother!" I mean, they're all excited. That's not okay. Like that's sick. So we are already as a society, we just like are not there yet to understand like what the limits are, and so like you're already sitting on that weird. I mean, that's not a gray area. The 21-year-old and the 50-year-old thing to me is not a gray area, but to a lot of people is a gray area. Okay, still. But you're already sitting on like this weird gray area. So like, where do you keep pushing it? It's deviancy. It's a need to be deviant, and
I
that is where this stems from.
I don't know, because so there was a bar by my house that we used to drink at called BG Fellows, and BG Fellows was notorious because it was known as the sophisticated night spot, and it was basically like a wedding party gone wrong. You would have 40 and 50-year-old divorcees, men and women, and you'd also have kids that were 21. So, we'd go there, and I knew just as many stories about 22-year-old girls going home and fucking 45-year-old divorced firemen as I do 25-year-old guys going in there and going home and fucking 47-year-old divorced housewives, right? Um and yeah, is there a kink to that? Yes, you're right. You know what I mean? You want to call it deviancy, yeah, a little bit of a kink. I'm sure it's, the chicks wanting to get railed by someone hot and young. Maybe the guys had a little bit of a mommy fetish. I don't fucking know. Did the girls have a daddy fetish when they were getting banged by a firefighter with gray hair? Probably. You know, did the firefighter enjoy the fact that he was banging a chick with a non 40-year-old pussy? Okay, right? But all of that stuff, as much, and I'm not kink shaming, so be careful because you're getting close to kink shaming there. All that stuff is consensual. All that stuff is legal. Are there age gaps? Yeah, but all of that is still vastly fucking different than kidnapping 10-year-old paper boys in the middle of Iowa, right? Like light years. And I think that you can have an age play kink and not necessarily become a pedophile.
You can't have an age play kink until your brain is at a point where it can understand the decision that it's making. That's the part of the brain that the part that hasn't developed yet is the part of the brain that makes you be an impulsive teenager and make bad rash decisions.
I'm talking
That's
about
where
everyone
the
over
action comes
18.
in.
I'm talking about everyone over 18.
That's correct, Pato. Everyone over 18 until their brain fully develops has that bad impulse control because their prefrontal cortex has not developed yet and it fucks with your decision making skills. You should not, anybody over the age of a certain age should not be going after anybody younger than a certain age because of that. And the fact that people just act like, well, it's okay because people do it and it's illegal. That's what I'm saying. You're right. That is different from kidnapping 10-year-old boys and, doing whatever. It is different, but not really because that's the slippery slope that leads you there. It's a gateway drug to
Uh,
pedophilia. It is, though. I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. I promise you. There have been scientific studies on it. I promise you, it's out there. But that's where this comes from is deviancy in society. And so when when you have your society shifting and people going, well, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, it is definitely easier to get other people on board to create these big rings, right? I mean, it's hard, it's kind of hard to recruit, I imagine, but not really, because that's how you would test people. I mean, you would kind of push that limit a little bit further and a little bit further. Okay, you fucked that 25-year-old. That's cool. What about the 21-year-old? That's cool. What about the 18-year-old? All right. How about the 16-year-old? You know, at what point is it do you stop it at? What how young is too young? And you know, honestly, when these people are asked that question, they don't really have an answer. They don't really have a stopping point. And so and again, these are people that are preying on people that are much younger, but I don't know. Again, read about it. That's not what this episode is about. Read about it. Read about it. It's real. It's a thing. Um. Anyway, I lost my train of thought.
You turned into me for a second there.
I know. I did. I was like trying to think of like a
How'd it
particular
feel?
reference. I watch these guys catch pedophiles on YouTube all the time. I recommend it. Watch these guys catch pedophiles on YouTube. It's great. They pretend to be children on the internet. It's like Chris Hansen, right? It's like To Catch a Predator, but modern day.
Mm.
And they go meet up with these people. And some of these people, Pat, don't have a limit. Sometimes they're talking to a 16-year-old girl, they think, and that 16-year-old girl has an 8-year-old sister. And the predator wants to bring the 8-year-old sister along
But
and do
that
things with sister.
I yeah, but that's fucking I just that just to me is different than being a 45-year-old guy picking up a 22-year-old girl at a bar. I don't know.
It's
And
not
I'm listen,
okay. It's a power dynamic. You have more. If you're a 45-year-old person, you have more power over the 22-year-old because, especially when you're informed about it, because now you know their brain is not fully developed. It is not fully developed. It's not. And the part of the brain that isn't developed is the part of the brain that makes decisions. It's not fully developed. You know how many people now, right now, in my age group, my friends, that regret the fuck out of that kind of stuff, that feel used, that feel sexually assaulted because stuff like that happens, even though at that moment in time they thought it was a good idea, it haunts them.
yeah, lots of people have lives full of regrets, and you know what? I regret 99% of my relationships that I was in too. You know what I mean? That's part of growing up. You make bad decisions. But to say that you made a bad decision because you hooked up with a guy at a bar one night means that, you were abused. It's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to speak in generalities because there's plenty of cases where girls, get too drunk and get picked up by guys that have ill intentions and get exploited, right? Just like as we know from the Smiley case killer cases, there's plenty of dudes that go out and get drunk and killed and don't make it home either.
Yeah,
So like,
absolutely.
listen, do people take advantage of drunk people? Yes. Yes, I think we could agree on that. That shit happens. Um, I don't know. I don't know what the cutoff is between age in a relationship because there's me and my wife are the same age. We graduated high school class of 99. We are exactly the same age. But there's plenty of people that are seeing somebody 10 years apart and I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Um I don't know if I would necessarily condemn it. Um so I don't know, but 10 years between 30 and 40 something
That's
is
way
a lot.
different.
It's a lot different than,
When
21 and 31, I guess,
right,
or
2130,
whatever,
yeah.
wherever you want to put the fucking goalposts. And here's the thing, everyone's got a difference of opinion, and assholes are like opinions. Everyone's got one, and they're usually full of shit. So we'll leave it at that. I don't know. Do,
Anyway,
do what works for you.
just
Protect your
Google it.
children. Tuck your kids in tonight. Make sure the fucking doors are locked. Thank God newspapers aren't a thing anymore. We don't have to worry about pedophile rings.
Yeah,
You know,
Google all of it. Google Johnny Gosh and fall down that
sure.
rabbit hole because there is so much more to it than just that. Google testing kits for your cocaine so that you don't accidentally overdose on them.
Right. And Saturday,
Um,
March 4th at the Great Wolf Lodge Convention Center in Mason, Ohio, the Loveland Frogman Festival.
the Loveland Frog Band Festival. Yeah.
There you go.
And we'll be there. And
Yeah.
that's that. So, all right, then. Well, we'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.